Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Boxing Bananas live show here on Fight Bananas, where we are crazy about fights. My name's Ray. I am joined with none other than the professor himself, Mr. John Radford. John, how you doing today?
Doing great, brother. Doing great. Ready to get into this. It's gonna be exciting.
Sweet, my man. So today's show, we want to go over what went down over the weekend. We had Adrian Broner versus Blair Cobbs. We had Xander Zayas versus Patrick Teixeira. But before we get into that, also, we're definitely going to touch up on this weekend's fights. We got fights out of Las Vegas and we got fights out of Puerto Rico. So we definitely are going to touch up on that just a little bit. But before we get into anything, make sure you guys subscribe to the Fight Bananas on YouTube. We're bringing you this great breakdown, the great mind of the professor breaking down these boxers. All you got to do in exchange is hit that like on Facebook and that subscribe on YouTube. So before we get into the weekend recap, my man, I got a message right before we went live, and I don't know if this is official or not, but I'm hearing some breaking news. I'm going to share my screen. We got some breaking news here. On July 20th, in replace of Mike Tyson, we got Jake Paul versus Platinum Mike Perry. It says here, set for July 20th per sources close to Paul's camp. Now, I just saw this on Instagram. This could be one of those, gotcha, fake news, clickbait type memes. John, what do you think when you first see this news? Have you heard of this yet? Do you think it's real? What are your thoughts?
You just literally, I saw like when you told me you got something to your phone, I went to see if I got that same thing, if I had an alert for it. I did not know about this. This actually makes me happier than the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight because I didn't really want to see Mike Tyson get in the ring. I think he's still a capable man. I just don't know why, like 58, 29, it's not an age gap I prefer in professional boxing. When you're seeing somebody, I think he's a legend. He should be there. But this right here, this gets me a little bit more excited. Mike Perry is a dog. He's a beast. He is bred to fight. The man that's what he's supposed to do in life is fight. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
He's absolutely great at bare knuckle boxing. I mean, fantastic at BKFCs. He's Mr. BKFC, Mr. Violent over there, fantastic, right? But putting gloves on, it's a little bit different. That being said, though, man's got power, man's got grit. He's got pretty much a granite chin, it seems like. Keeps coming forward. This makes me excited.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Mike Perry is everything that you described. And since leaving the UFC, he's really found his home at BKFC. And it's been one of those things where this guy is electric. It just seems like people, I don't want to say like mentally quit in there, but it just seems like once they get hit by him, they say no mas. They don't want any more of it. So
just a tough son of a bitch.
I know, man. This is something that's been talked about for quite a while, actually. Mike Perry's name's been floating around the Paul brothers. I know he was even a backup for the Dylan Danis fight, which everyone, I think unanimously, probably besides Dylan Danis, would agree that we would much rather have saw that fight with him versus Logan Paul.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's a fight that Logan Paul would have saw the finish to.
No.
But from what Mike Perry said, he was even in the back, dressed up, warmed up, all the way up until the bell rang for the first round of that fight because they were just Danis was a loose cannon. They just weren't sure if he was gonna, walk off, if he was gonna do the same thing that one guy did when he was fighting a Jabe. You remember what I'm talking about?
It is. You got to ring. The bell rang.
The bell rang and he just walked right out, and everyone's like, "What's this guy doing?"
Technically,
to be fair, nobody really wants. He showed up. But to be fair, I don't think anybody really wanted to be hit by a Jabe either. So
no, true.
Yeah, except for Frank Martin. but that's another story. That's another topic we get into. But yeah, man. So I'm like you said, I agree with you. The Mike Tyson fight had a lot, um, as far as like it could really bring in the casual fan because it's got Mike Tyson's name attached to it. But after seeing what Vitor Belfort did to an almost 60-year-old Evander Holyfield, I think I agree with you, man. I don't know that anyone almost 60 years old needs to be stepping into a boxing ring. So I don't even know if they should reschedule that. They're talking about November,
Yeah, I
but
heard that part. I heard that part.
I'm just not sure. Yeah, man. So you're on the same page. You would rather see that fight get just flat out
100%.
canceled?
No, I would. I mean, just let's check his health. Play it in the media however you want. But yeah, just let's wipe that off our plate, off the menu for the rest of the year. Visit that somewhere else. And let's be real. This may not end the way Paul wants it if this is real. Like if this is true, Perry might end that man.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it can be, that's a real legit thing, 100%.
no, dude. Yeah, we're over here talking about the potential fight with Mike Tyson as if because that's essentially talking about the next fight. There might not be a next fight if Jake Paul actually does fight Mike Perry, because that might not be a fight that he could win. There's a chance that he could win, but against Mike Perry, this is a guy that the other fighters that he fought, the criticism was, oh, he's fighting these MMA guys. He's fighting these MMA guys. My rebuttal to that was always, first of all, a lot of pro boxers when they're making their way up are fighting MMA guys as opponents, right? And they're not fighting former world champions. They're fighting, the guy that fights locally who's 3-3 in MMA, who's getting some experience in the boxing ring.
True.
Those guys are warriors. Those are the guys that we need in boxing. You know what I mean? To help hone the skills of these young guys coming up. But that's the reality of it. So I never really liked that criticism of Jake, because for him to step up in competition from fighting a YouTuber to a basketball player to like a retired wrestler to then a former world champion who is in the debate of the greatest welterweight of all time, I thought was a huge step up. Even him fighting a 47-year-old Anderson Silva, people got to remember
that was the best fight he's fought so far. Besides the best person he's fought, even though that was a 42-year-old Silva, that was the best fighter he fought in the MMA world. Like when it came to pure boxing and skill, right?
Yeah,
that's my opinion at least. You fought Tyrone Woodley, how you just said, one of the great welterweights, but what did we see him in MMA before? We saw him get gun shy.
Yeah. He was the chosen one, but then they started calling him the frozen one because after he had fought, I think it was like 4 fights in a row, he fought Usman, super gun shy. He fought Colby, super gun shy. He fought somebody else, Burns, actually before Colby, I think, was super gun shy. And then once he fought Luque, he started throwing his hands again, but then he walked right into like an elbow and ultimately got choked out, which I would prefer him, to fight like that. I don't even see that loss as bad as the other ones. But
yeah,
to your point, yeah, he was a gun shy version, but even on paper, it was a huge step up. I agree with you too, though, on the Anderson Silva thing. The Anderson Silva thing, man, people were hating on that, but the year before he went in Mexico and won a decision against a former world champion in boxing who had over almost 60 fights. I know he's, a guy that doesn't really train or take it seriously, and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. But if you're a boxer, if you have a pro record of 3-1 right there, I mean, you should automatically, you're a pro boxer. And then on top of that, if you then beat a former world champion, I'm missing where the debate is. Are you on the same page as me?
Yeah, I think let's put it this way, if Anderson Silva stepped in and fought Jake Paul earlier in his life, that fight goes completely differently, one for one. Like if you give Anderson Silva, say he stopped after the ankle break or, the leg shattering one and everything like that, and he didn't keep fighting MMA and said, you know what, I'm not kicking anymore, I'm going to go over to boxing. Mm-hmm. He would have been highly successful, I think.
I
He
mean,
still had
really, in hindsight, that probably should have been the move
that should have been the move, I think.
in like
But it's Anderson Silva.
2014, 2015.
Yeah, it's Anderson Silva. He gets to choose what he wants in life. The man did enough in his life. He can do whatever he wants, right? But even that fight, besides that knockdown in the 8th, which it's a knockdown. It's a legit knockdown, but it's not necessarily one of those. It's not like he dropped him and had him all wobbled and then he got up. He dropped him, he popped back up, and yeah, that was the drop he did. That fight was close. That fight was really close.
Yeah.
Like, that's not like you didn't dominate Anderson Silva. Like, that's not like everybody. I feel like they just run over that fight because I don't think they really looked at it and saw how close it was.
That was a close fight.
A 42-year-old man was just as fast and quick as a 29-year-old and just happened to get caught because he's had a lot more damage over his career. Mm-hmm. And he only got caught in the 8th for a knockdown. To me, it's different.
It's a different type of knockdown too. Like you said, like I said, it's a different type of knockdown. Like there's some knockdowns that are like legit, like he gets wobbled, and there's other knockdowns that are like half off balance, but it's a good shot. You know what I mean? So I'm with you on that. Like there's different types of knockdowns.
Yeah, I agree. And this fight right here, besides the Tommy Fury fight, which was he's a real boxer. I don't care what people say about he doesn't take it. He's a reality star. He doesn't take it seriously. Well, he takes it serious enough to where when he gets in the ring, he's training for it, right? I'm not saying he boxes year round like other people, nothing like that. But he takes it serious, and he doesn't want his name and his family to go downhill because of him. I promise you that. So there's a little bit more pride there than people probably think.
He has a lot on his shoulders when it comes to fighting.
Yeah, I mean your brother's one of the goats in heavyweight boxing for his career, all the stuff he's done. Was the lineal champion and everything. So you got a lot on your plate. That was Jake Paul's toughest fight because he did lose. You know what I mean? I thought he did lose that fight too. Like, you know what I mean? It was a good fight, but I thought he lost that fight. This fight is the real deal. You have Mike Perry, who has now had plenty of time to practice boxing just for bare knuckle boxing. He's had many fights that way. Hasn't gone back over to MMA. He's only been throwing hands. He's always been a tough dude. He's always thrown hands anyways in MMA. He wasn't a wrestler, wasn't all these things. He was a striker. To me, now you're fighting someone that's the true caliber of where you want to test yourself. You beat Mike Perry. Now we can talk about you being a real boxer and a real true fighter, right? Yeah, you fought Nate Diaz. I get it. He's a former world champion, but boxing isn't his thing, man. It's not his thing. I don't care what anybody says. It's not his thing. You know what I mean? Throw hands. That's great. He's tough, but that's not his thing. That's why he, showed the guillotine in it. Like if this was another fight, I'd beat you. All that kind of you don't play that way if if your sport is boxing, right? You just box, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, this is the one. This is the guy that's going to be like, yeah, buddy, you're going to have to go. You're going to really have to hit this jaw and hurt me because I'm not going to stop coming and I'm not going to take breaks. I'm going to throw, and I'm going to throw with bad, nasty intent.
He's moving forward.
Exactly.
And the pressure's on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. Mike is one of these local guys to Central Florida. Have you ever had the opportunity to spar with him?
Oh no, I haven't sparred with him. I've chit-chatted with him. I hung out with him. Mm-hmm. I saw him spar in the gym and worked around it. But I've never got to actually spar with him. They were always like when I was coming up trying to, amateur to pro before I turned pro, he was always working with the pros. I was more on the side of coaching. He was still in MMA, whereas I wasn't doing MMA. He was boxing. So no, I haven't got that, but I've watched him spar. He's a dog. He's a lot more technical than people think, man. I'm telling you, he knows how to fight. He knows how to do it. And the one thing I will 100% promise you, there's not a person on this planet that man is scared of.
I don't think so.
Not one. He will get in there with absolutely anybody.
Maybe Francis, but
I don't know that he's scared of him. He might not be ultra confident.
He might not be happy to get in there with him.
Yeah, he might. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, Mike. Back in 2020, when I was in a lot fitter shape, I had 2 times where I sparred with him. Nothing crazy. Weren't going nuts. Which, thank God.
Yeah.
Right, because nobody would want that. I'm not signing up for hard sparring with Mike Perry. Let's just put it that way. First one, pretty cool. Second time, after a morning class, energy was zapped a little bit, and I felt like it was one of those things where he was just like, you know what, I want to be done with this, My man. You remember when Oscar De La Hoya fought Bernard Hopkins
Yeah.
and he got knocked out to the body and was rolling around the floor like, "Ah." That was me with Mike
Yep.
Perry. He snatched my liver up real quick, and that guy can hit hard. And another time, because he used to do the classes right at nighttime. One of the times we were doing the classes, and he was doing these crazy drills where he would be like, "All right, we're gonna condition body, so everyone for 30 seconds to a minute throw body punches at each other." And I was up at the front, and I didn't have a partner, so he goes, "Oh, me and you, I'll be your partner." He has no gloves. This guy's knuckles are like the size of little pebbles, and he's sitting there, obviously not going 100%, thank God. But dude, having that guy hit you bare knuckle is something else. And every time one of these guys gets in there with them, I pray for them, and I'm glad that some of the times the ref will stop the fight a little, like we saw the last one with Thiago Alves. The ref went ahead and stopped it.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, man, because he's in there to do damage. But
Oh yeah. I wish the Eddie Alvarez fight would have went a little bit farther because I thought Eddie was doing real well until he caught the knuckle in the eye that swelled it all up.
Mhm.
I thought that was going to turn out to be a really fun fight. But like you said, man, Mike Perry does damage, and that ended the fight again.
Yeah.
And as simple as that.
No, I agree with you. That first round with Eddie was tagging him up, and Mike just kept his head on the center line the whole time. And what I saw I don't know if you feel the same way, what I thought I saw in the Alves fight was him moving his head a lot more.
Yep. Agreed.
It looked like, he probably felt it and then watched that fight back and said, I need to move my head.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a guy who's moving his head, throwing big shots at you, coming forward. Now, Mike Perry is a professional in boxing. He has a pro record. He has a pro record of 0-1. He had one loss against the guy who actually beat a friend of mine as well over in Alabama on a Deontay Wilder card. So that guy was legit, McNeil. But
I know. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Keith McNeil. That guy. But what I should say is that fight that Mike Perry had, I think, was like 2015, 2014. So we're talking about 9-10 years ago. Was that one defeat that he had in boxing, and then just after signing with the UFC and whatnot, never revisited boxing, partially because you can't.
Mhm.
But and then found his avenue in BKFC. So even though he has a 0-1 boxing record, this is a much different guy. And yeah, I hope that Jake is training as hard as he can in Dorado, because if this is legit, again, it's not completely verified. Nothing's official till it's official. But I hope this fight is going down. And one more point on this, and then we'll move on to some other fights.
I got one question for you before that, though, or before when you're done. I got one question for you, though.
All right. What was I saying? I hope that they don't do this fight in Dallas. They were going to do Arlington. I don't think that they can. Oh, we got Dave Van Auken right
he's
here.
Confirming it 100%.
100%. Dave, breaking
news.
This is 100% confirmed.
100%
breaking
ago.
news.
That's from the guru, David Van Auken, guys. That's from the guru, bro.
You know, David is locked in.
Oh,
so
yes, sir.
See what I did there?
I did.
But yeah, man. So we got 100%. I'm throwing that up one more time. Dave, El Presidente himself, I can 100% confirm. So.
Look at this guy.
Is that Dave? Was that what you were talking about earlier on the podcast? Me and Dave, we did a on the Fight Banana show earlier. We had an interview with Devin Cushing, and I think he said something about I got some big news, and he said Texas or Florida. Thank God, bro. Please put this back in Florida. That's what we need. This is a Florida fight.
100%.
Yeah. So. I've actually, surprisingly, I mean, I'm not like the biggest Jake Paul fanboy in the world, but you wouldn't be able to tell based off of my previous live attendance. I've been to 3 of his live fights. I went to the one in Tampa where he knocked out Woodley. I went to the one in Orlando, obviously, because it's down the street. And then I went to the last one just now in Puerto Rico. So, I've been to a few of his fights, and I wouldn't mind going to another one if it was here in Florida, but I don't want to go to Texas. So
I feel you.
Please, Dave, if you got any pull, talk to the people.
Five Bananas will be in the building.
Yes, absolutely. We got
It's gonna
Zach
be in
Attack
Tampa
going to
or
be in
Ohio. No, it's
Tampa
gonna
or
be.
Ohio.
I can see it being in Tampa. I don't know about Ohio.
Dude, the Tampa arena is really nice, man.
Yeah.
So I could imagine him going back there. I don't like Ohio either. I get it. He's from Ohio. I feel like Tampa's going to be better. I feel like
I,
this is a Florida fight.
I say that because also my next question to you is: do we make this the main event? Does it stay the main event? So this is still bigger. This is bigger than Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor still.
No, it's not. It's not. As far as far as like for what it means, no. But
For everybody else,
for everybody else, man, you put this at the top. You know what I mean? Because
no, I mean
this
that's
you're
my
getting
answer
like the
too.
YouTube audience, you're getting
Yeah.
the MMA audience, you're getting the BKFC audience. Like you're gonna draw so much more audience than you would for the rematch with Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, even though that's gonna draw a huge audience also. But yeah, man, you put this as main event. You know, I like what he was doing in Puerto Rico where he was fighting the Berlin, and he was gonna let Amanda be the main event, especially in San Juan. It made sense. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to get cleared last minute by the doctor. But yeah, for this, you put him as main event. So
Especially with it if it's in Florida and Perry Central Florida guy, you got to put it. Yeah, it's gonna
dude,
they're gonna show out. The MMA
Kia
community is
Center,
gonna come out.
Orlando.
Yeah, let's go Arena. Let's go Arena.
Let's
Or
do
the
it.
Amway. I'm sorry. Is that the Amway or is it Kia Center now?
It's Kia Center now.
Changes all the time. I don't know.
Yeah. The
I'm
Kia
from
Center,
O-Town.
Orlando.
I'm from Orlando back in the day.
Yeah. So
That would
that
be
being
good. I
said,
like that.
any last thoughts on this breaking news?
I'm glad if it's true. Like Dave said, it confirms it 100%. Let's go. I'm excited now. I'm excited.
Dude, that's awesome. So
I
shout out to
definitely.
Dave for
Oh,
confirming that
last
one for
question.
us.
Is it on Netflix still?
I don't know, Dave. You
Dave, if you're
listening?
listening, is it on
Confirm
Netflix,
that.
Dave? Do you
Confirm
know?
that. You got all the answers. I don't know, man. We'll figure it out. That would be cool if it was still on
Yeah.
Netflix. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Obviously, this story just broke. We have a ton of time. You know, I mean, honestly, only like 6 weeks or so, 5 weeks, but we got time until that fight. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of developments in there, and we'll be talking about it here on Boxing Bananas. That being said, let's talk about some fights that actually did go down. So over the weekend, we saw, and real quick, we got Zach Attack going to be a banger. Can't wait. I agree with you, Zach.
Yes,
Absolutely right. Over the weekend, we saw a couple fights. We saw Top Rank Boxing, and then we saw a Don King card, which featured the return of Adrian Broner versus Blair the Flair Cobbs. Now, did you catch the fight? And what were your thoughts?
I caught the highlights. I watched the Xander Zayas fight, but I did not watch the Adrian Broner one. I
And you
watched
know,
some of the
one of
highlights.
the reasons why you probably didn't see it is because they were charging a pay-per-view of $40 for that fight.
Yeah, that's why I didn't see the whole thing.
That's one of those things, man, where I just feel like when you do stuff like that, like if you were to charge a $15 pay-per-view, sure. You know what I mean? To see if Adrian Broner still got it. All right, that's fine. You know what I mean? People tune in. You're charging $40 to see if Adrian Broner still has it. Nah, man, that's not it. That's not a good look. And for the amount that people were paying, I don't it's hard to say that he's exploiting the fan base and the promotion is exploiting the fan base. But when you go out there, you charge what you're charging, and then you fight the way he did, or don't fight the way that he did, man, dude. So for my scorecards, I had it pretty much a shutout. The 9th and the 10th I gave to Broner, but the 9th was even a close round, and the 10th was like one of those where I shouldn't have given it to him, but I was like, I could see where the judges might, so I did that. But really, it could have been 9-1. The thing about him, man, he was like at the beginning rounds, he was trying to do that catch hook that he does,
It looked
and
awful.
it looked terrible. Like before I go off on a tangent here, I'm trying to hold myself back, right? Because this is a guy that we watched you know, at 135, 10 years ago, he had all the talent in the world. And now to watch him fight like this is just a shame. Wasn't utilizing the jab, even his straight right hands. Like he was pressuring forward, but not doing anything. Blair was simply winning because he was just much more active. He got dropped pretty bad in the second round. Looked like he lost his tooth and everything. But yeah, man, to go out there, perform terribly, lose your tooth, get knocked down, it's not a good look for him at all. You know, what are your thoughts on Broner's performance from what you did see? And then the question as well is, do we think that Broner should even fight again?
That question, I'm gonna say no. Like, no, don't fight anymore. Like, if this was your last test to see if you can make one last run, and you truly think that you put everything into it and whatnot, then this should absolutely be the last time. Like, right? This should be the last time that you're trying to make a run against somebody who has potential.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're trying to be a guy who sits around near your hometown and you're taking fights, you're still a professional, but you're taking fights and you're taking like stuff to like sell out the hometown crowd to make a little bit of money here and there. Kind of get that. I kind of understand that. You're a from wherever you're from, if you're a local hero, if you're a person that people will still come out to sell out one of your smaller, hotel venues or one of your smaller, convention center venues in your hometown or around that area, cool.
Yeah.
Fight somebody up. Fight somebody you're going to, put on a show for, beat, do your thing. But other than that, the upper echelon for Broner is over. Like, you're not making that run anymore, homie. Like, I don't knock him in his skill set and anything that he's doing. I just think his time has passed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's past. It's just not that time. I don't know if he's, to me, the best thing for Broner, I would think, is to honestly, I think that will keep him in the business of boxing, keep him relative, keep him all these things, is teach these young cats how not to do the wrong things you did. Like, go back and reevaluate your career and go be better about it and show the younger ones, because you have a wealth of absolute knowledge from all different aspects of the game, of the business. Like, you have a wealth of it. Go share that. Not just with like some of the small guys in your camp or whatever it is that you do, but go out there and get a stable of dudes and be like, look, I did a lot of things in my career that are great. I also did a lot of stupid things. I'm going to help you guys understand which one's which and how to get there and how to get to the big and keep it once you get there, because he should clearly know how not to keep it. You know what I mean? Because he was up here.
He's a case study on what not to do with your career.
Up here and then just fell after that. You know what I'm saying? The sky was the limit, and then all of a sudden it just kind of crumbled.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the best scenario for him. I was not impressed with any of the highlights I saw. The guys I was talking to told me the same exact type of thing that you're telling me here. 9-1, 10-0. The check hook was looking terrible. The little bit I saw, and the knockdown was brutal. At one point, without me knowing that he got his tooth knocked out, I thought he didn't want to put his mouthpiece back in.
Yeah.
I was like, "What are you semi-quitting right there?" Because that's the second time that like you had to bend over to pick this up. What's going on?
Yeah. We talked about it before, where it's one of those things when you start doing the mouthpiece trick. Yeah, it's like a soft quit.
Yeah, so I got a little confused on that. I get it if your tooth's in the mouthpiece and you don't know where to put it back in.
Yeah, it makes sense now. In hindsight, it makes sense.
That I get, but if that tooth was still in your mouth and it just felt weird, I'm still like, I don't know. But it could have been either one. I just think that Blair Cobb now got a good little uptick for him. He hasn't fought in a little while, and then he went out and fought Broner, and he got his win back. He got a win, and now he's kind of put him on his list of opponents. So now he has a chance to take a step up. You know what I mean? But as far as Broner goes, man, turn around and help these young dudes teach them how to make money like you did, but teach them how to keep it. Teach them how to stay at the top. Teach them how to do this. And spread that knowledge of boxing, because you are a phenomenal talent. Spread the wealth that way. That's your path. I think you have to success, to be relative in boxing for longer.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. It's just like I said, man. It's a shame to see somebody who is so talented put all that talent to waste, and now, and then he was in the lead up, training with Tank and whatnot, saying, oh, I'm in shape. I'm really taking my training seriously. And then for him to go out and fight like that, it's one of those things like we talked about last week with Deontay Wilder, where if you go out and lose, it's one thing. But if you go out there and fight terribly, or not even just fight terribly, like look like you don't want to fight. Like if you can't throw your hands, it looks like something's going on up here, and then you're taking damage like that.
Agreed.
I think it's about over. And then most certainly, if you're going to charge your fan base $40 a fight, no way.
For a pay-per-view inside of a hotel, what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
So absolutely. But for Blair the Flair, and one more point I'll make on Broner. For Broner, like you said, it's not even like he was fighting the upper echelon of the welterweight division. Like, so he was fighting Blair, who's, was making his way up there into that prospect range. But imagine if he was even to fight somebody like Conor Benn.
Yeah.
He would have got torched.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
That knockout, the knockdown in the second round would have been the end of it.
He would have, no offense, but he would have looked like Chris Algieri.
Yeah, he would have got knocked out, like straight up. It's that knockdown.
Conor Benn.
Yeah. If Conor Benn fought him, that second round knockdown would have been the end of it. It would have been over.
Yeah.
He would have never made it out. Even if he got up, he would have never made it out. Conor Benn would have finished him.
Yeah, for sure. He would have smelled the blood
100%.
in the water and hopped all over him. But for Blair the Flair, like you said, this is a great win on his resume, especially coming back into it. I don't know that just based off of the eye test, I don't know that his skill set is going to be there to bring him to the top. But that doesn't mean that we can't see him in good fights, which is what I like in boxing. Not everyone has to be the best in the world. You know what I mean? But if you can get good matchups and good fights, I like to see that. One of the people that he called out afterwards, he did it subtly, and then he dropped his name afterwards, was Ryan Garcia. Now, at first, I think, I don't know about that. I don't think that you're on Ryan Garcia's radar. I don't think that's a fight that you could even get. But if you look at the way boxing goes and you look at, okay, what are Ryan's next moves on the chessboard? We talked a little bit about, Ryan talked about going up to 154, fighting Fundora, whatever, fighting Earl Spence at 160, all of these. If you're managing him correctly, you want to ease into those steps. Let's get to 147. Let's get you a fight at 147. Let's get you a fight at 54. Then we'll start inserting ourselves into that title picture there, because there's already a lot going on in that title picture. So I don't know that somebody coming up from 140 is going to be able to just insert themselves, even with the star power name like Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
I don't know that if he were to say, hey, before I go to 54, 60, like I've been talking about all over the place, if I make this pit stop at 147, let's do what for him would probably be considered a tune-up fight against a guy like Blair Cobbs. Hey, here's my comeback fight after all this BS that I just went with. Golden Boy, you know how Oscar De La Hoya loves to marinate the fights, like he says. This is something that he could sell a couple, 1, 2, 3 fights just with Ryan Garcia's name alone before he even puts him back into a super fight. Yeah. So do you think that based off of that assessment there and that possibility, we could actually see a Ryan Garcia versus Blair Cobbs fight?
With what you're saying makes sense, and there's not a dispute with that. There's nothing I can argue with that. That's very logical. That's sound business practice in the boxing world.
Because we know how boxing works.
Yeah, but I think the problem is that in Ryan's eyes, Ryan leads the dance. Ryan does the dance. Ryan's going to put his name out there wherever he wants. If the money's not going to be right for him for that Blair Cobb fight, if he can't do something or he's not on a pay-per-view that's going to sell a pay-per-view, the points for him and everything like that, I don't see him wanting that fight, that pit stop with him at 147. I would say he goes straight to try to get Earl or try to get somebody else, and he keeps talking that route and tries to see what happened. Maybe depending on how Gervonta looks this weekend, you know what I mean? Maybe he tries to go after that one again. You never know. You know what I mean? For a high thing. But I think right now on his mind is high profile. I kind of agree with your first statement with that. I don't think Blair Cobb's on his radar in any kind of way. I don't even think he's a blip somewhere out there blipping. You know what I mean? I don't
I'm
think
with
that's
you.
happening.
Yeah.
He might have looked at that and said, "Oh, you beat Broner. I knock out Broner in my sleep." That's probably what Ryan Garcia is thinking in his eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to go ahead and take the route you're talking about. I think that actually is a very successful way, for us to go ahead and see him fight and not, how do I say it, not wait for a super fight, not be pushed back for another year before he fights or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
This could be, like you said, a tune-up fight on the way up. I like that. I hope they go that route. That would be fun. That would be better for us as fans.
Yeah.
Because I just don't see
sure.
where he can insert himself, like you said, in the championship picture at the 154 level, or even at the, obviously 160 to me is out of sight right now. That's a little bit different.
It's just that's too much. It doesn't make sense. Even 154 is kind of a little crazy talk
Yeah.
right now. And there's just too
147
much.
though is fine.
147, yeah, 147 for sure. It's the most logical step. I mean, you just miss weight at 143, fight at 147, rehydrate up to 160, 165.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do. But I don't really know that. Like, is he going to go in there and fight Boots? Is he going to fight, whoever else are going to be the top guys? I don't know. And I don't know that. I think kind of the same thing why Crawford didn't fight Boots. Boots right now, his skill set is higher than his profile.
Yes.
I feel like. So it doesn't make
That's a good way to put that. That's a very good way to put that.
Yeah. His skill set is much higher than his profile. So it's one of those fights where it's too much risk for not enough reward. Why take that fight? So I don't know, man. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Blair will get that fight. Ultimately, great win for him. What would have been good, actually, which I think real quick before we move on, had the Blair versus Broner fight not even happened and you pushed Broner back a couple months, I think Ryan versus Broner at 147 would have been a pay-per-view fight, and Ryan would have beat the baloney out of him.
I think they missed something right there. But I also think Broner wanted that win. He thought he had a win. He thought he had a win.
I think so. I think he did think he had a win. So, what? It is what it is.
He thought he was going to be on the come up.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. And then that was Friday night. So then Saturday night, we saw on Top Rank Boxing, Xander Zayas versus Patrick Teixeira. We had a little preview of this fight the end of last week on Thursday, I want to say. There was a couple things that I missed in that lead up. One of them was that Teixeira was a southpaw and Zayas had never faced a southpaw. Also that Teixeira was a former WBO world champion. So those were two other things. Very good experience for Xander Zayas. Real quick, I'll give some thoughts and I'll pass it to you. I thought, he had put the expectation on himself. Hey, I need to get this guy out of there in before 6. I don't even think he should put expectations like that on himself. I thought the commentary was a little critical of him, especially my man, Desert Storm Bradley, Tim Bradley. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, I'm surprised Bradley's still commentating because I remember him saying he was going to quit if Ryan Garcia won. So,
you hear that, Bradley?
I really do. I like Bradley. I like Bradley, but sometimes I feel like he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. Or maybe it's just his training style. He's a lot more critical on people to try to get the best out of them. But I don't know that doing that on the commentary team is the best. But I could see where in the gym that would translate. So overall, I thought Xander Zayas had a great performance. There was a couple things he could have did better, but I thought, man, even from the start of the opening bell, I thought he had a great shot selection. Yeah, man, I just thought he did, like, the guy Teixeira was tough, and he was a crafty veteran that specifically knew how also not to get knocked out.
Oh yeah.
And I think even their corner said that was their game plan after like the 5th round was, hey, avoid the exchanges with this guy. So I think he was just looking for the final bell once he realized he was outmatched. It's hard to put away a guy like that, so I don't think he needs to have that type of criticism on him. Your thoughts on his performance?
I just think, like you said, if he's never fought a southpaw before, he definitely learned what a southpaw does to you. Like, he learned that wholeheartedly in that fight, and that's my problem with it, right? So you're this high, you're this far along, and you haven't fought a southpaw yet?
Yeah, that's weird.
I'm a little confused by that, man, because there's some nasty southpaws up as you get farther up the rankings, right? There's some dudes that can switch hit and throw you for a loop. You know what I mean? So I definitely think he's a star. I think he's unbelievably talented, but in that southpaw orthodox stance, he gets hit way too much, just way too much. And it seemed to me in certain exchanges he was okay with it because he wasn't worried about the guy's power.
Yeah.
Like, but I just don't like that as a coach. I just like as somebody who corners, and everything like that. And I just don't take hits that you don't need to take.
Yeah, I agree.
There's just no point. But other than that, you're exactly right. I thought, Teixeira was much tougher than we both gave him credit for. We even looked up his record. We did a little deep dive on it, right?
Yeah, we did.
I'll give credit where credit's due. Kid's tough, man. Kid's real tough.
Mm-hmm.
And he has faster hands at that age than I thought he would.
Yeah.
His quick little right hook to his left, to his right hook is it's quick, and it has some pop on it. And you saw it in a couple exchanges late in the rounds when he decided to plant his feet and throw those hands fast. It surprised Xander a little bit, and he had to pause. He still kept the foot on the gas and walked forward, but you saw that pause in it, and it was like that gave Teixeira enough time to go take that big wide circle that he was taking to stay away. Because I think you're playing exactly right. He was trying to make it to the end of the bell. He realized he was losing this fight.
Mm.
But he also wasn't running in the sense of, I'm not going to not throw at this guy. I'm not going to just pit or jab him and move. I'll exchange with him when it's my opportunity to do it, when it's my job. I thought he did a good job as being a vet, understanding when that happened. The only thing I didn't like with Zayas was the fact that he just got hit too much in that position.
Yeah.
Go back. You need to bring some southpaws into the gym, some really quality southpaws, and just work on that for a little bit. That way, if you come across any, you're better. But other than that, kid is tough. He throws punches and bunches, and I don't mean that as a cliche thing. I mean, he throws good, clean, crisp combos when he's in there. His uppercut, 4-3, or as I call it, some people call it a 6. I call it 4-3. All of those body things, he does a real good job mixing up the levels when he's on the inside. And you can tell he has some pop, some real big pop. I just feel like he had a hard time setting up that pop the way he wanted to in that southpaw with the southpaw fighter. He just wasn't used to that. He wasn't letting his right hand go down the pipe like a left-hander does, in the southpaw orthodox position. Other than that, though, I mean, he gas pedals great, 10 rounds all the way through it. Or was it 12 or was it 10? It was 12.
It was a 10-rounder.
It was a 10-rounder?
And it was his first 10-rounder as well.
Okay. So it was gas pedal to the end. I mean, he definitely stayed on it. Super think he's going to be a superstar, the next Puerto Rican star. I can agree with that too, that he's going to be a superstar. I think this fight could have helped him with that. I don't think it hurt him.
No, I just think
some people are taking it, like you said, too much criticism to a kid, that is still on the come up, that's still on the way up. And like, if you said, like, he's never fought a southpaw, he just fought it on the main event in the top rank in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
A little bit of pressure.
He's 21 years old.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's a little bit of pressure here, like, right? Like, you
don't want to know what I was doing at 21 years old.
Oh shit, me and you both, right? Oh my God, that's 21 years ago for me. Holy crap. So it's like, I don't even, like, that is a little heavy, but you're just, like I told you, he was talking that he was going to put on a performance. He was going to do all these things. And I think that's where that criticism stems from, because you said something before a fight. And now these people, the commentary, Desert Storm Bradley, wants to hold you to that. They want to hold you to that talk. If you're going to be the guy that's going to say that, then you need to be the guy that goes, does it. And that's just the fighting world. That's anybody who wants to talk it, right? That's what it gets. But I think he's an immense talent. I just didn't like how he was getting hit too much in the middle of the exchanges in the southpaw when Teixeira decided to throw. But other than that, first time, 10 rounds, first time southpaw, main event, Madison Square Garden. I mean, I enjoyed the fight. I thought it was great. I mean, it wasn't dull. It wasn't like he wasn't trying to push. It wasn't any of those things.
Yeah, it wasn't a boring fight.
Huh?
It wasn't a boring fight at all.
Not at all. So, I mean, good, very good talent. I think either get him let's see him fight another southpaw and one or two more fights to correct that problem. But other than that, man, he's 21. 21.
That's what I'm saying.
Headlining a pay-per-view for top, or headlining a top rank on ESPN. I mean, he's 21.
Yeah, it's huge, man. The based off of like what you're saying too is, you could be critical of him, all the, whoever, and he was getting hit with, shots he shouldn't have, but for like we're saying, when you're fighting a southpaw for the first time and somebody who has as much experience, I mean, the guy's a former world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're gonna get hit with those shots. So how much of it is he needs to tighten up his defense to he was fighting a crafty southpaw that he's never fought before, who's a former world champion, but also should probably tighten up his defense. Which one do you think was a little bit heavier on that scale?
I think it's 50-50 to tell you the truth, because he is a crafty person. And we always got to remember, southpaws always fight orthodox fighters, right? 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Orthodox fighters mostly fight orthodox fighters 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So that's the big advantage for a southpaw, right? That's the fact he's like, dude, I fight this style every time, so it's a little bit there. It's a little bit easier for him to be crafty, and he's done it for that many years. He's done, former WBO world champion. He's done it for a long time. So it's craftiness, but it's also, at this level, you got to understand the right defense for southpaws, the right offense for southpaws, and things like that. Probably should have done a little bit more case study on our guy Teixeira to see his habits and see his, ticks, if you want to call it, or hitches or quirks, whatever you want to call it, his style per se. But I think it's 50-50. I think he needs to tighten it up. And I think Homeboy was crafty. I don't want to take anything away from him, but he definitely needs to go revisit and tighten up for sure. It's just the game of boxing, right? And that's what it comes down to.
And you know what the good thing is, though, is that these are fights that you need because now you have the tape. You get to go back and watch it. You get to watch it. You and your coach get to sit there and watch it over and over again, round by round, and see, okay, here's what we're going to be drilling come Monday morning, or whenever it is that they get back in the gym. So, this is good for him. Now, you had mentioned, will he be the next Puerto Rican star? I think so. And I want to break down the route of which, if I was Top Rank, if I was his management, that I would take. The last big Puerto Rican star was Miguel Cotto.
Mm-hmm.
He was a world champion by 24. I don't know that Xander Zayas necessarily has to become world champion by 24, right? We got 3 years. It is a bit of time, especially depending on how active he is. He is an active young man, but maybe push it to 25. Who knows? We have, like we were talking about the 154 division right now, how there's so much activity going on. Within the next 2025, possibly leaking into 2026, we may see, as I like to call it, all the Dragon Balls come together in a undisputed championship. If I'm, putting a bet in there, I think would be most likely featuring Terrence Crawford on one half of it versus whoever else, Fundora, Tim Tszyu, Ortiz Jr., Earl Spence, possibly any of these guys at 154, Madrimov, possibly if he beats Crawford. But I feel like let that division play out how it's going to play, let all those come together. And then once they get, for example, let's say Terrence wins the whole thing and says, all right, I'm riding off in the sunset. Boom. The belts redisperse. Then start positioning yourself in advance for a shot at a vacant world title once that happens. You know what I mean? And go that route, play it out, but don't be in any sort of a rush, because there's killers in this division right now, and there's no need to jump into the deep end of the pool at this moment in time, or even in the next couple of years. Take that time, hone your skills, especially if you want to really be the next big Puerto Rican star, which I very feel like he can be. I think that's the route to go. I got one other point, but before I hit that, what are your thoughts on kind of like my timeline breakdown?
Oh, you go ahead. I thought you had one other point. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say you agree with that. Would you move him another path? Would you have him fight for a world title quicker? Maybe wait even longer? How would you see it?
Okay, with certain fights that play out, I may tweak it, right? Depending on how certain fights play out. But what I would say is every time a big fight happens, the loser is going to drop down, right? A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Start finding the best loser out of those top caliber fighters
Who
to
has that
fight
name?
and start stepping up. So you get a top caliber guy that just lost. Let's go fight him. We beat him. Then we get another tune-up fight, another easy, another one to just keep active. Then watch the next big guy lose. Pick out of those couple people because, like you said, it's like a tournament that's going to happen at 154, right?
Yeah.
There's some tournaments there's some people that are going to fall off and have to get back. Start picking off the ones once they fall off that you like the matchup with. Start picking those up. Start taking what they've had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And start working your way up that way. I think fight a top tier guy, a little walkover, top tier guy, a little walkover, top tier guy, and you're going to spread that out over the 3 years that you're talking about, and you get to see how these things play out. And I think that to me is kind of going to position them the best in that area, in that belt category in the next 3 years. If we don't see them all come together at once, if weird things happen, another Fundora upset, over Tim Tszyu or something like that. When some weird things happen, you never know. It's boxing. But I think if he starts taking off, chipping away top 5, top 6, top 7 guys, starts chipping away at them as they lose, as they try to make their way up the ladder, back up the ladder, and he starts knocking them down, I think that's going to be the best scenario for him.
Yeah. I think I'm with it, but the only other thing I would say is maybe don't even fight some of those losers, because some of those losers may be the ones that you fight for the vacant title.
Maybe.
That could be stretched out even further. But either way, I think he's going to be that guy who can be the next Puerto Rican star. I don't know that he has much else competition besides somebody who's going to be fighting this weekend, who we'll touch up on a second, in Subiero Matias. But for Xander Zayas, he's got he talks well. He's a young kid, and he's from the island, which is very important. We saw Top Rank try to, and the thing is that they're moving him the right way as well. We saw Top Rank try to push Berlanga as one of the next Puerto Rican stars. The issue with Berlanga, though, was that I feel like, and I've heard, there was a lot of money invested into his career early, which gave him the favorable matchups to make it seem like he was this destroyer that now that we've seen might not be the case. In MMA, it's a very harsh term, right? But in an MMA, they'll call it a fraud check. And they'll say, this guy got fraud checked. Don't get it wrong. I'm not calling Berlanga a fraud anyway like that. But for what he was sold to us, to what we're seeing now, I don't think is the same product. Do you agree?
I think what that comes down to is I think he built so much confidence in the lower tier guys that he was just destroying and knocking out, that when he's getting to these guys that can still stand in front of him, it's chipping away at that confidence that he made, that he brought himself. He's like, oh, I can't knock everybody out. No, man, it's not always going to be that way. You're not always knocking everybody out. Not everybody's a freaking Arthur Beterbiev, right? 20-0 and 20 knockouts. Not everybody's that guy.
Yeah.
Not everybody's like Triple G goes on a 30 knockout streak. It's like,
exactly. Maybe he thought he was that guy. Maybe he was drinking a little bit too much of his own Kool-Aid.
I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think he's not talented. I don't think he can't have it. I think he just needs to go back and realize, all right, hold up. I got to develop these other things, start setting up these punches better, start doing whatever it is to get these guys out of here better, breaking them down and letting the knockout come to me like in the flow, like in the fight. Like, let it come to me. Let me like break some opponents down and earn the knockout the way it is. Not just always catching them with one punch, always doing the one hitter quitter type of thing and getting them out that way and relying on that power. Because I think at an early stage, if that's what you rely on, it's a bad news it's just a bad news scenario. Eventually, you're gonna run into somebody that can take it. You're gonna run into somebody that can stand in front of you. And how do you deal with that? Does that chip away at you, or are you still as confident as you are to throw
And
those
all of
combos?
those, by the way, were in the first round. So if
Yeah,
somebody can take it and now you're fighting a 10, 12 rounder, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen when you're getting those shots back and you haven't been past one round? And I think that's what we saw in fight after fight after fight on Top Rank
I
as
agree.
they were trying to push him as this big star. Was we saw him get knocked down? We saw him in more lackluster performances. We saw him in performances where some people thought it shouldn't have even went his way. So that's what kind of fizzled the hype on Berlanga. And the main other thing, the reason why I bring him up was because they were putting him and Xander Zayas on the same cards as these are these big Puerto Rican cards, whatnot. The issue with Berlanga is that he's not from Puerto Rico. He's Puerto Rican, but he's not from Puerto Rico.
He's
He's
not
from
from
New
the
York.
island. He's not
He's
from
not
the
an I.
island.
He's
Okay,
not an
gotcha.
island boy.
Okay.
He's not an island boy
Oh,
like Xander Zayas, right? Xander Zayas is an island boy.
yeah.
Same thing similar to Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia was Puerto Rican, but we didn't think of him as a Puerto Rican fighter. You know what I mean? Because he's from Philly. So when they're trying to sell us something that we know isn't, that's where it's gets into that as well. And I think we're going to see that now if they push Berlanga as the next fight for Canelo. Another thing that goes into it too, Ben, is I don't think the guy really can actually speak Spanish.
Is
So,
is Berlanga really getting pushed for the Canelo fight?
bro, so I went to Berlanga's last fight in Orlando, right? And in the post-fight interview, based off of what you said, it did seem like he was saying something along the lines of, "Oh, I need to get my confidence back. This really helped me with that." He ended up getting that knockout again. It was a good fight. And somehow through, investments, they ended up weaseling him into the WBA mandatory slot. And they were saying right there that he was the WBA mandatory for Canelo Alvarez's title. Meanwhile, while you have Canelo Alvarez as the super champion, and in the WBA, they have their regular title. They have their regular title and their super duper title with Canelo Alvarez. Under that is David Morrell, who is a killer.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to say, and mind you, also sidebar, the WBA got in trouble like 2 years ago and threatened by American boxing saying, "Hey, we're gonna unrecognize you as a major title if you don't cut out this whole regular title and super title, because that's not like a thing. You can't say that you have two world champions in the same division when we already have 3 other world champions."
Yeah.
So they said, "Okay, well, we're gonna make it so that the regular champions are all mandatory to the super champion, and we're gonna order those unifications." Well, they did a little bit in that, and just to ease the stress. And then other ones they didn't. They picked and choose which ones they wanted to. Tank, they didn't do it. With Morrell and Canelo, they didn't do it. There's certain ones they just did not do it. Even with Bud and Earl Spence Jr. and Amanda Stanionis, they didn't do it. So that being said, even with you getting threatened by the American boxing, for you then to try and make it seem like Berlanga can now hop over Morrell as the mandatory, is insanity. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
I mean, do we throw around the word corrupt?
Well, it is
Possibly.
boxing. It is
boxing, and it's the WBA. So who knows? It was funny though. Afterwards, I saw David Morrell there. He was at that fight, and I just went up to him and I said, "Hey, bro, you're the real mandatory." And he's like, "Yeah, I know."
He's like, thank you for telling me, but I know.
I was like, "Dude, I don't know what that was, but you're the real mandatory." And he's like, "Yeah, I appreciate it." So that was cool. I'll tell you what, he doesn't want any part of David Morrell though, but not to go on the whole Berlanga trail, but they're basically trying to make it seem like he's going to fight Canelo next terrible fight, and they're going to try their best, and they're already talking about it. They're already doing the Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio putting the seed in our head that it's a Mexico versus Puerto Rico showdown. And I'm telling you right now, the people are not going to buy it. People are not going to buy it. The Puerto Ricans are not showing up for Berlanga like they're showing up for Amanda Serrano, like they're showing up for Xander Zayas. It's just not happening. Yeah. I was at that fight where they put it in Orlando for a reason. And my man, there was like 3 Puerto Rican flags out. When Amanda Serrano fought in the same venue, they were all over the place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then on top of that, I heard that they were giving away tickets the day before. They had the small bleachers. When Jake Paul
was that at Carib?
Yeah. When Jake Paul fought in that venue, he had the big bleachers and had it filled up.
Yeah.
So you're telling me Jake Paul's selling more than a Puerto Rican in Central Florida, basically Kissimmee.
I saw two of my guys actually sell that place out better than 2 of my buddies that fought David Garcia and Isaiah. Either way, they fought on Undisputed and they put on a card, and that pal
Garcia's the heavyweight, right?
Yeah, they're both light heavyweight or whatever. Or David's heavyweight.
David's heavyweight.
Isaiah Connors is that's what his last name. Is what do you call it? I want to say light heavyweight, I think. Either way, they fought on that card, and that place was more packed than the one that you're talking about with Berlanga, because that thing was kind of sold out when I was there, at least for whatever venue they put.
I think basically to wrap up our whole point here, going off on this trail of Berlanga, is that you will see in the upcoming months they're going to try and sell us a Canelo versus Berlanga fight, label it as Mexico versus Puerto Rico, with a guy who does not deserve a Canelo shot, and it is not going to work.
No.
Because they're still trying to make it seem like he's the Puerto Rican star. On the other hand, you got Xander Zayas, who is going to be that guy, and I believe he's going to be that guy. So, and the thing is, man, my family's Puerto Rican. I talk to people all the time that live on the island, that moved from the island, that are here, that are there, and they're not talking about Berlanga. They're talking about Xander Zayas. They go, "Oh, you saw Xander Zayas?" Even like the old heads, you know what I mean? The guys that don't really know boxing, like, or modern day boxing, they talk, "Oh, Xander Zayas, yeah, I that kid's coming up." So, shout out to Xander Zayas. He's got big things coming.
And Berlanga needs to fight Caleb Plant anyways. They got some beef. He needs to fight my boy Caleb and just get it over with.
I feel like everybody's beefing with Caleb, but nobody wants to smoke with Caleb.
Yeah, David Benavidez and Canelo, the only 2 men that really want the smoke.
Yeah,
and he fought both the top tier guys. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying, man. So you got Berlanga's mouthing off at him. I don't think he wants to fight Plant. I don't think Berlanga needs to fight anybody who is not named Canelo, because now all of the money that they invested into him early in his career, they're trying to get that payday back with the Canelo fight. And that opportunity will be lost if he fights anybody remotely close to that caliber in the top of the super middleweight division.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. All those guys beat him. So it is what it is. That's what they're going to do. We'll see what happens. It'll probably actually, you know what? I hope this fight happens, because then it's going to get more people pissed at Canelo. And then it's going to, like we were talking about, it's going to marinate that Benavidez. People are going to start being like, actually, I like Benavidez more than Canelo. And then once finally Canelo agrees to that fight, then we're gonna see it. It'll be marinated to perfection.
Yes, I can see that. My thing is, though, he was speaking on another podcast the other day, David Benavidez, and he was pretty much stating that he's not waiting. He wants that undisputed championship. He wants all of the belts. And if that means he has to go to 175 to get them, he's about that life, which I respect wholeheartedly. You got some killers.
You're talking about with
Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo.
Triple C. Yeah.
Pound for pound podcast or whatever.
I listened to that one too. That was a great podcast. Those guys do a great job. Yeah, man. I mean, seeing him fight, the winner of Bivol versus Beterbiev would be great. But if he wins this fight coming up, right, which is this weekend, he
That's
will be
tough.
the WBC interim champion, which will put him right in line for that title shot. Whoever wins the undisputed showdown on October 12th, Beterbiev or Bivol, do you think they make an automatic rematch, or do you think they move on to somebody like David, or do
Depends.
you think that even if David has that number one contender spot at the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol, does he fight that guy, or does he say, before, while I still can, let me make one last cut to 68 because Canelo's finally going to give me that shot in May of 2025
Oh,
and
I
then
mean,
fight for
obviously
undisputed there.
the biggest fight for him, period, and for anybody is Canelo, right? Canelo Alvarez is the biggest fight. David Benavidez, Canelo Alvarez, put it in the sphere, put it wherever you want to put it anywhere, put it in Mexico City for all I care. Put it
On the
wherever you
moon.
want. It's going to get sold. You're going to sell. It's going to be 150 million for Canelo. It's going to be about 80 million for or more for Benavidez. Both of them are
I'm
getting
calling it
paid.
right now. I think Benavidez gets 10 to 15 million.
That's it.
Tops 20. I think
Maybe.
that's what's going to happen. I think he's
You
going to
think it's going
take.
to be like a? You think it's going to be like an 80-20 split?
It's going to be a 95-5.
You think so?
I don't know if it's going to be like that, but I think it's going to be so insanely lopsided because I think David Benavidez is going to take those terms. Based off of everything that I'm hearing, he's saying straight up, I don't even care about getting paid like that I just want the Canelo fight because once I get that Canelo fight and I beat him, I'll make the money in the rematch.
Oh, understood. I agree with that. But the problem is he's not the only guy that makes that decision.
Yeah.
There's other people behind you that make money. They're going to want more money. They're going to need at least 25 out of it, bro. They're going to need at least 25.
Yeah.
If he gets 25, then I see him signing on that all day long real quick because the people behind him are getting paid and he's still making 12, 15 mil, whatever it is.
Well, it also depends. Okay, let's say he fights for the undisputed winner at 175. What's the price tag on that? If it depends on which one's higher.
He makes more if you're saying it the way it is because he'll take lower terms with the Canelo fight. He'll make more with the other one. But that's only because he'll accept the lower terms with the Canelo fight, as you're saying, which I could see that because in the rematch that he'd get, because Canelo would want that back.
Mm-hmm.
He gets now it's a 50-50 split. He gets a lump sum, right? He gets a huge payday.
Yeah.
I think if he fights 175, if he gets the WBC interim title now, if he fights them, or if Bivol and Beterbiev fight, and Beterbiev knocks Bivol out, there's no rematch, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think you go straight to Benavidez. If Bivol knocks out Beterbiev, there's no rematch. Go straight to Benavidez. If either one of them point the other one, it's going to be a rematch.
You may see a rematch. Yeah. I would like to see, with all these rematch clauses and stuff, I would like to see like conditional rematch clauses where, just like you said, if there's a stoppage on either side, the rematch is null.
Agreed.
Void. You know what I mean? That's what I want to see if we're going to be doing this rematch clause, because there's certain fights they don't need a rematch. Like when they were talking about doing the the T-Bud versus Spence rematch. Nobody wanted that, and that I'm so glad they didn't do that.
So
because just because it's in the contract, like, doesn't mean you have to go that route. I'm glad that everyone decided not to. But
agreed wholeheartedly.
With the Beterbiev versus Bivol, I think that's something that you're right. Like, it just depends on the money. Remember, Beterbiev versus Bivol is happening under Saudi money.
Yeah.
So whoever wins that fight, and if they set it up with David, will be a Saudi paycheck.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So PBC is not paying that. I
don't think Saudi in any way is stupid when it comes to knowing what fights need to be put on in their country, or just so they can get money any which way. If Canelo and Benavidez work out to be done, right? They bid for that purse right away.
Yeah.
They bid for it right away. And then both of them get paid. And you don't have to worry about a weird split. Canelo's going to get all his money, and Benavidez is going to get paid plenty of money. It won't matter because that money over there goes forever. It goes forever.
Let me ask you this. Here's a question. Benavidez fights at 175 this weekend, June 15th. Does he take another fight? Because the Bivol versus Beterbiev fight. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My screen froze for a second. But as long as you can still hear me.
Yep.
The Beterbiev versus Bivol fight's happening in October.
Yeah.
So realistically, even in a expedited format, we're not going to see him fight for the undisputed championship until minimum December, January. So does David Benavidez, with a win this weekend, fight somebody else in the meantime, in the, no pun intended, the interim?
I mean, he could very well. He could very well do that. I'm trying to think, like, do you think with that scenario going on, saying it that way, do you think that since Berlanga is the WBA, right? We said
Mm-hmm.
at 168?
Yeah.
Okay, so if he's the mandatory WBA, do you ever see any world that Canelo withholds the, like, relinquishes the WBA and lets Berlanga have it, and then Benavidez fights him for it to get the chance at the undisputed against Canelo?
No.
Okay.
And the reason is because David Morrell is still the WBA regular champion, which I think he's vacating that also and moving up to 175 as well. So now we have another player at 175, and I think he's doing it on the same card as Terrence Crawford in August.
Okay.
I will have to fact check me on that, but I want to say that's correct. Can you see me still?
No.
How about now?
Now I can. Now you're good.
I don't know what's going on, man. My whole thing was spazzing out. So I'm a little bit of technical difficulties. We're back. Yeah, man. So I think there's a lot going on though, but the reason I bring that up is because if we're playing this out in our minds and Canelo fights in September, Benavidez is fighting now, these other guys are fighting in October. Is Benavidez going to wait until May of next year to fight Canelo? Is he going to wait until whenever these guys, or does he take another fight?
Yeah, I mean, it just all depends on the money.
Yeah, and the opponent probably too.
Yeah, it depends on that, and I think if he dominates this fight this weekend, his phone will start ringing more, especially for that 175 division. It'll start ringing more. He might get put on that Bivol, Beater Beef card in October. He may slide onto that. They'll be like, hey, let's put you on this card with them, and then you get the winner. You know what I mean? We'll give you a guy to fight. You fight your fight, and then you get the winner. We'll line it up right here and then everything. And that just comes down to, I think, money and how he performs this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. So that being said, we're hopping right into our weekend preview. Check this out, guys. I'm going to share my screen real quick. This is the Ring Magazine boxing schedule. So first, we were talking about, actually, before we even talk about this, it looks like in London, want to highlight that one right there. Our guy, Mr. Ben Whitaker.
Yeah.
He's fighting. So that'll be something to look out for.
That's a big step up in competition for him too.
Yeah, in London, I like those fights because if I'm not doing nothing that day, which usually I'm not, dude, fights starting at the card's starting at 2 p.m.
And it's on Peacock?
I guess so.
Oh shit. Hell yeah.
So that's solid. But what I want to highlight is before we get into the pay-per-view, Las Vegas Prime pay-per-view, I want to highlight this one from Manatí, Puerto Rico. We got Subriel Matias versus Liam Paro for Matias's IBF 140-pound title. My man, Subriel Matias, for those who don't know, is a guy who's knocked out everyone he's ever faced. He's got one loss. He's avenged it. This is a bad man. The Ring magazine, if we go over to actually, the Ring magazine has their number one as Teofimo Lopez because he's the Ring magazine champion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But BoxRec has Subriel Matias ranked as number one. And I think that was possibly based off of Teofimo's last performance.
Mm-hmm.
Another fight I was at, frustrating fight, if anyone's ever saw that. And that one, I mean, this is one where we talk about, the Dragon Balls coming together, the Infinity Stones being collected, however you want to lay it down. But when the titles come together, get unified, possibly undisputed, this is a guy who may take it all the way to the top. This one I'm definitely going to make sure I'm watching. What are your thoughts on Subriel Matias?
No, I definitely want to check him out. I mean, he's a monster. He absolutely is a monster. Like you said, he's knocked out everybody's face. He revenged that loss with a knockout. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where I definitely want to see this kid. This is the only opponent I'm hoping they don't try to fit Xander Zayas with right now.
Well,
I have a feeling that people aren't as like they always do weird things in boxing, and I have a problem that they might try to do something weird and them two fight too early.
I don't think you'll have a problem with that because Zayas is at 154.
Oh, this is 147, right?
This is 140.
Oh, 140. My bad. I apologize.
So you are good.
Yeah. All right, yeah. So we don't have to worry about it. Well, then at 140, yeah, man, this dude's a monster. I would love to see. Oh, that's right, because you said Teofimo Lopez. I'm an idiot, y'all. I'm sorry. I would love to see that. Let's see them two go at it. That would make Teo have to fight, and that would make him have to perform up to his caliber of an athlete that he is, because I feel like he doesn't always perform up to his caliber. Sometimes I feel like he performs to the caliber of the guy in front of him sometimes. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I think this would be a great fight.
You talk about a guy who's drinking his own Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I think, Teofimo is one of those guys. He really thinks he's like the best thing ever because, I mean, he comes off of these huge wins and then just kind of, loses his game, like doesn't fight with the game plan, stuff like that. But we got some interesting stuff going on at 140 or at 140. Mm-hmm. Looks like Ryan Garcia has departed. Devin Haney still holds his title. He's going to be mandated to fight the Spanish. Damn, why am I forgetting his name right now? Sandor Martin. Sandor Martin, if anybody doesn't remember, he's the one who upset Mikey Garcia on Mikey Garcia's comeback. And he fought Teofimo in a fight that a lot of people thought that probably should have went Sandor Martin's way. I'm not saying I thought that. I don't have a scorecard to show you, so I can't sit here and die on the hill of either way. But he did knock down Teofimo at least once, probably twice. I think one of them they called it a slip. So, and he's a tricky guy. I don't know that he beats Devin Haney, but I don't know what Devin Haney shows up. Has Devin Haney's confidence gone out the door? We don't know what happens. I don't think they have an official date for that fight, but I know that's the mandated fight. And then we got Teofimo fighting at the end of the month in Miami for the WBO title. And then the WBA champion is Pitbull Isaac Cruz. So we'll see if we get some unifications going on, but I think this guy right here is definitely the guy to look out for. Any last thoughts on Subriel Matias before we move on?
No, man, he's the dude. If you guys get a chance to check him out for sure, because he's the man.
Most definitely. So now we move on to the Las Vegas Prime, Amazon Prime pay-per-view. We got on the undercard, Mark Magsayo is good. Roman Villa this guy's legit. I'm pretty sure welterweights. Yeah, that was the guy who upset what's his face? I forget his name, but he upset him, and he, I think, last fought, unless he had a win in between that. No, he last fought Jaron Ennis and got stopped by Jaron Ennis. He last fought Rashidi, or before that, he fought Rashidi Ellis and upset a 24-0 Rashidi Ellis.
Gotcha.
And that was a tough fight. He definitely beat him up. Close fight, but Rashidi Ellis got beat up. So that one's definitely one to look out for. Mark Wixayo. We got Carlos Adames, who is now the full WBC middleweight champion after finally Jermall Charlo got stripped. Guy hasn't fought since like 2021. So, but he was just kind of holding that WBC title hostage. Adames was the interim champion. He is now the full champion. We got Gary Antoine Russell at 140. We'll see what happens with this fight.
How do you feel about Gary Antoine Russell?
I'll tell you what I feel. I feel like they're really trying to hold on to his like 100% knockout rate, because some of these fights are very kind of questionable in the stoppages, especially that post-all fight. There was no need to stop that fight, I thought. And it's just one of those things where I feel like it was somebody. I feel like there was conversations had.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's nothing to take away from Gary Anton Russell, but I just don't like that. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, it's tied to his name. Now, fun fact for those listening: Gary Anton Russell has 3 amateur victories over Jerome Boots Ennis.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you don't know who he is, but you know who Boots is,
I think you got
to watch out.
I think it's different when it gets to the pros, though, man. It's a different strategy. It's a different game. A lot of people will hold a lot of weight over that, but it's such a different game.
Yeah, I'm not considering that anyone does hold weight over it, but it is it happened. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's like how Joshua beat Big Bang Zhang in the amateurs. You know who else in the amateurs? Usyk lost. You know who Usyk lost to in the amateurs?
Who?
Pop quiz. He lost to Sean Porter.
Who? He lost to Sean Porter?
Showtime Sean Porter. Yes.
Wow.
They were both fighting at 165 pounds at the time.
Wow.
Crazy, right? So that's how much of a grain of salt you should take that with. Now, the co-main event, a guy that we just spent a lot of time talking about, David Benavidez versus Alexander Gvozdyk, if I'm saying that correctly. Gvozdyk, it was the guy who his only loss is to Beterbiev, which Beterbiev is Beterbiev, you know.
Yep.
But what's it called?
He's the one who beat Adonis Stevenson and put him in the hospital.
That's what I was saying on the last one. Yep, exactly. Yep. Took the words out of my mouth. He beat Adonis Stevenson, stole his title, and put him in the hospital, unfortunately. He made one defense of that, and then he lost against Artur Beterbiev. Since then, he's had 3 victories, but he hasn't fought since September. So I don't know if that's going to affect him in any way. The other thing is he's 37 years old. So he is a little bit on the other side of his career.
Yeah, but they age differently over there, bro. They age differently over there. It's not the same.
Yeah, they're doing ice plunges every day when they wake up, just going out in the river.
They got all things a little bit different over there. For some reason, they last a little bit longer. I feel like when it comes to their fighting ages over there. You know what I mean? But
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with
that. This is gonna be a very tall test for David Benavidez, but the talent that David Benavidez is, I think, comes through with it. It'll just depend if he can get him out of there or if he dominates it or how close it is. I think there's only 3 things. It's going to be close, and it could go either way. We might be talking about this really, a lot on the following show. It could be a dominant performance from David Benavidez where he just outpoints him for, so many rounds, and we see that. Or David could get a finish, man. The man has natural speed and pop, and he's going up a weight that he normally sits around, I want to say, 190, 185, 190, and he gets down to to 168 when he has to fight in that, and it's already getting hard. We talked about that before for him. I think he's going to be real comfortable at this weight. I'm just hoping that his skill set and energy level transfers over and he can take the punches from the bigger guys just like he is, and it's not that he got used to taking the punch from the smaller division. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Those are great points. Looking forward to a good fight, and we'll see what happens. If David Benavidez can pull off a big win, that'll be legit. Definitely make sure everybody checks out our episode. Possibly this Friday, we'll release the date, but we're going to go in depth into all these fights that are going down over the weekend. That being said, main event, I'll let you take it first.
Tank versus Frank. I mean, that's what it is, baby. Tank versus Frank. One thing I always say about Gervonta is that people underestimate his IQ in the ring. He's not just a power puncher. He's a very, very intelligent boxer. He reads things when people make him fight. He has good and a good IQ, defensive things. He understands his level of skill and where he is successful at. And sometimes I think that's a big ordeal when it comes to athletes. If you're not 100% positive exactly where you excel at the best, sometimes you can't get the fight there. Sometimes you can't get it to where you want to be. I think like Gervonta Davis understands exactly where he's best at, and he usually makes it go that direction for himself. Now we got Frank Martin on the other side. Frank Martin is technical. He can box 12 rounds 100%. He can go the distance. He can outpoint Gervonta. He can possibly outpoint Gervonta. He could catch him. He's not a strong puncher, so he could catch him. But either way, super excited for this fight. I think they both are ready to go in there and bang. The energy level between the two of them seems pretty solid. One's not walking over the other when they're talking to each other, nothing like that. I feel like the energy level is equal. I think we're going to have a hell of a fight card this weekend, bud. I think it's going to be good.
I think it is going to be good, and I think this is going to be good for boxing, and it's going to be good for Amazon Prime coming up. My thoughts are, I expect most likely a Tank victory. I don't think it's going to come easy against Frank. If it does come easy, then it's going to show that, Tank does have the skills that everyone's talking about, which I don't doubt. You know what I mean? I do think there's been the scales tilted in his favor in several fights that he's had, and where it makes him, look like this guy that there's a chance that maybe he's not. But all I'm saying is there's a chance. I'm not saying that there is. I'm not saying that there isn't. We have to see. The thing is he's got to really start taking these big fights. He's creeping up to 30 years old. There's big fish in the water, and I want to see Tank in there with the big fish. But we'll see what happens. I expect him to win this fight. I think it's going to be a tough fight, but we'll see. Definitely look forward to breaking it down fully in our upcoming episode. But yeah, man, Tank. But based off of what you said too, you made a good point. Is that he does have a really good boxing IQ and boxing skill set to back up that IQ. But in a social media world, a lot of people just kind of focus on the highlights, and his highlights are good, but everything in between is high boxing IQ and athleticism that complements it. So I think he's got the full package. He's the real deal. I would like to see more even matchups, and I would like to see him test those skills against the best people in the world. So I think this is a step in the right direction, but I'm excited for a good fight. I think it's going to be good.
My only question for you is, who is your ideal matchup with a win from Gervonta Davis for him? Who's the ideal one? Who would you like?
You know what I would like? I would like a fight with Ryan Garcia rematched, no rehydration clause, at either 145 or 140. I don't think 140 is unfair because what's it called? Tank's already been there, right?
Mhm.
Many people don't know, but he did have a rehydration clause on Mario Barrios as well. Mario
Yeah,
Barrios just didn't say
he has
nothing
one
about
on
it.
Martin too. From my
Yeah, does
understanding, he
he?
has one on Martin.
Yeah. So the rehydration clauses don't upset me as much, or I mean, I don't want to say upset me, but they don't. I don't mind them as much. But when you layer them on top of a catch weight as well, that's where it's not cool. Especially after you've already been to 140. I mean, talk about the eye test. We could just see bright as day the difference in the statures of that fight with Tank. Ryan Garcia looked like a twig. His lips were like completely chapped, and no wonder why he went down so easy to a shot to the body. And people, will say, "Oh, well, look at the way he fought. He looked like a psycho." I mean, the kid probably only knew I probably only got 4 good rounds in me, so let me go balls to the wall and go swing. I mean, it affects everything, like your game plan, everything like that. So, a fully hydrated Ryan Garcia. Now, I'm not saying Ryan Garcia wins that fight. I don't know that he does. I think I would bet on Tank Davis, but I think it should be a fair matchup if you're gonna face him.
It goes longer. The fight goes longer. He
Much
gets beat.
longer.
Yeah, Gervonta probably gets him in the late rounds at 140, not early.
And here's the thing too, is that people don't like hearing the criticism. I think the criticism is fair because they did it right, and the counter to that is, oh, well, Ryan's a grown man. He signed up for it, blah, blah, blah. My question would be to that. And let me ask you this question, right? Let's say that you rebutted me and said, oh, well, Ryan's a grown man. He signed up for it. So my objection would be, if Ryan didn't sign up for those terms, would that fight have happened?
No.
So
But
then,
I mean that all those points are accurate. All the points are accurate. But just like Mario Barrios, he never even said shit about it because he's like, yo, I signed up for it. That's where my qualm comes in at, right? The bigger guy, just like you, Ryan, signed up for it and he said it is what it is, man. I signed up for it. I knew what it did. And he didn't come out and say I had a clause. No one said shit about me. You know what I mean? Until after you started talking about the clause, Ryan, and started talking about that. And my whole thing comes down to is, who did Gervonta Davis learn that from? He learned it from his first mentor, Mayweather. And he's just being a businessman for himself. This is a sport where we put our health on the line, we put our life on the line and that kind of stuff. And if you can dictate certain terms to help yourself, boxing is one place that allows that. In combat sports, UFC, MMA, those don't allow it. You get to pick the size of the ring if you're the main event. You get to pick the gloves. You get to do everything, weight class, whatever it is. All of it comes into play.
yeah, all the terms.
All the terms. That doesn't happen in MMA. If everybody gets the same gloves, everybody's the same thing, same time, whatever it is, the fight's happening. You get to pick everything. So in a business of boxing, Gervonta's just doing what he needs to do for him in his eyes, in my opinion. And I agree with you. I like more fair play. I don't care for the clauses, but they did sign the dotted line, bro. They are, man. They did step in. I get it. If the fight didn't happen, I don't think Gervonta was going to budge on his end. So it makes sense that somebody had to budge and Ryan did it. But also, Ryan, you really wanted that fight. Why didn't you fight somebody else at 140 and get it that, or 140, whatever it may be, right? You really wanted that fight.
In hindsight, he should have did it. He should have fought Haney first.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Haney was going up anyways. I mean, that fight was actually a month before Haney fought Lomachenko, so it still would have been at 35. I mean, there wasn't a ton of huge options. Tank was definitely the biggest option, but yeah, I mean, my main point is, would that fight have happened? No. So yeah, like, he did sign on the dotted line. He is a man, but then when you put that on the flip side, okay, well, if you're going to turn down the fight, because at the end of the day, if he goes, no, I'm not going to agree to those terms, and you go, okay, well, then we're not fighting. Well, I mean, where do we go from here? Who's to blame? What do we say about the other person? Things of that nature. If you get where I'm going with it.
I get it. And my point, my I guess my rebuttal or last comment to that part is you'll end up hating both of them, and then it just builds a bigger fight.
Yeah,
You
no, for
do.
sure.
You end up hating Gervonta because he put this in there. Then you're like, Ryan, well, be a man, step up. There's going to be both sides of it. Whoever you're the fan of, you're taking the side of. And now they're just talking back and forth to each other. They're just going to go running back and forth. And to me, someone had to bend. I don't think Gervonta was ever going to bend. I think he understood, I'm still the A side in boxing. I'm this, I'm that. I'm going to say what I want to say about it. And you got to come get me. You're the one that's still trying to get on the scene and be the next big thing and everything like that. Whereas everybody knows Tank Davis. I mean, everybody knows Ryan Garcia now too, but casuals, whoever, they all heard of Tank because he was the little Mike Tyson, right? He was the guy 20. We just saw his record, 29 fights, 27 KOs. He fought on the Conor McGregor Mayweather card as the co-main event. I mean, people finally know who he is, and he has a huge American following. Ryan Garcia has his YouTube fans and things like that. Someone was going to break. It's probably going to be Ryan. I don't ever think Gervonta is going to come out of his realm unless it's just unbelievable amount of money.
I think what's crazy is that Gervonta hasn't fought since then. It's been a year and it's been 14 months since he fought Ryan Garcia. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That he's just been sitting back. So I don't know if that affects him at all. My main thing is I want to see numbers, man. Like people were always trying to say Gervonta is this huge star, Gervonta is this huge star. Oh, he's the face of boxing, this and that. But the thing is that he wasn't selling any more than 250,000 like 250,000 pay-per-views, right? Which is, I mean, solid numbers, but you can't try to say you're dethroning Canelo Alvarez when Canelo Alvarez is over there putting up like 1,500,000 minimum, and you're doing 250. Now they could try to say, oh, well, he did more than Canelo because he put up 1.3 with Ryan, but that's because he had the dance partner in Ryan.
Yeah,
Canelo has a dance partner in Benavidez. They're putting up 2. You know what I mean? So
it's going through the roof.
It's not a fair comparison. My point into this leads into a question of, where do you think now with Tank having that victory over Ryan, having that big exposure with the 1.3 million, where do you think that this pay-per-view, and with the pay-per-view being kind of stacked, where do the numbers fall in this? Is it going over 500,000? Is it going into the 700, the 750 range? Is it going towards the 1,000,000 range? Especially with it now being on Amazon Prime. There's a lot of factors in there. I like to look at the numbers and stuff. What do you think?
It's on Amazon Prime with pay-per-view, or is it on Amazon Prime just on Amazon Prime?
It's on Amazon Prime pay-per-view.
Okay, so you still got a person. Okay, so
there might be like a payment gap where people just aren't kind of like, what do I do with this? You know what I mean? So yeah. I don't know.
I would say that it goes somewhere between the 500 to 1,000,000 marker. I'm not sure if it breaks the Ryan Garcia. The help is, though, David Benavidez is on it. And
for sure.
We all know we want to watch that fight for that too, because I got super excited when they put them both, like those 2 fights on the card. Got really excited for that. I was like, all right, boxing's starting to realize that we need to put more than one fight on a card that's important. You know what I mean? So yeah. I like that. I would say somewhere realistically, because it's on Prime, and just for the fact that it's still more Americanized boxers than it is world known boxers, that it's somewhere between the 500 to a 1,000,000 range, somewhere in there. I'll give myself a decent gap to be right.
So yeah, that's a solid little gap right there.
Yeah, so I figure somewhere in there. Right. It's going to do more than the 250 last time. I don't know if it does as well as Ryan Garcia, because more people know about him than they know about Frank Martin, obviously.
For sure.
But to me, this is a better quality fight.
Yeah.
And as far as boxing goes, and especially since the weight class, like Ryan isn't naturally a 135er. He's definitely a higher weight fighter.
It doesn't. It's not riddled with shenanigans.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I definitely think it's gonna be sitting there between the 5 and the mil. But if it had, let's say, another huge star on there, let's say we throw just put another name out there, a Lomachenko, or we put somebody else out there on the card just for the fact that it's like a more of a worldwide star known from other countries, you're going to get more views that way, right? But this one will do extremely well. It will show it'll show profit like to the nth degree to where everybody's happy, and they'll want to do more of the ones with 2 big names on the card, 3 names on 2 big fights like that on the card. I think that'll show that the success of that. I don't know that it's going to hit the big time marker that we're all hoping for, but these top 2 fights right here, I mean,
I think that you can make an argument.
Yeah.
You can make an argument that this is like a pretty stacked card, especially for PBC. I mean, Villa is a good fighter. Magsayo's a good fighter. Elijah Garcia, I'm not as familiar with, because I guess I'm just a casual. Carlos Adames is a good fighter. Terrell Gausha, however you pronounce it. He's one of those guys that's in there, and is fighting. So he's a good guy. Gary Anton Russell is a name.
Yeah.
Benavidez versus, this is a huge fight. So I mean, this is almost like in the PBC world, this is almost kind of like a UFC style pay-per-view card. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that this one, because of that, I mean, might push those numbers up like we're talking about. But I think ultimately it's going to be driven by Tank Davis and David Benavidez. I don't know how much Frank Martin really brings to the table, but I think David Benavidez brings more. I mean, David Benavidez's last 2 fights before that were pay-per-view fights.
Yeah.
So they could have pay-per-viewed him on his own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is like, for my MMA fans, this is like if they had those fights where they have like Adesanya fighting, and then on the co-main event they have Volkanovski fighting.
Yeah.
Like Volk could have headlined his own. You know what I mean? But this is where they have it like that. So I think we got some good fights coming up, but definitely this upcoming show we're gonna go even. I mean, we did go into depth on most of it, but we're just gonna go even deeper. You know what I'm talking about? We're going oil rigs. We're going magma. We're going down the rabbit hole of these fights coming up.
We're going so deep, we're blowing up the asteroid in Armageddon to go around Earth.
That's exactly what we're doing.
We're splitting that baby. We're splitting that baby.
Make sure y'all tune in later in this week, possibly Friday. We'll announce it on Fight Bananas Instagram page. So make sure you're looking out for that. Other than that, man, we covered a lot of topics. Anybody who isn't listening or who's listening who didn't hear the beginning of the show, I'll drop it one more time. We had the breaking news of Jake Paul versus Mike Perry and you know what's crazy too, real quick, last thought about that. I know we talked a bunch about it for like 20 minutes. We talked about that. But out of everyone, when I was like, man, Mike Tyson's out, I go, who's he going to fight now? It made the most sense that it was going to be Mike Perry, because Mike Perry's always been there and he's been the backup multiple times. So I don't know why I didn't think of him.
And he's calling for that sparring footage of them to be put out. He's like, put that sparring footage out. Let them see it. Out? They have sparring of them sparring in Puerto Rico together.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
And Mike, Jake said a long time ago, was like, oh, don't make me put the footage out. He said it years ago, right? Like when they first sparred. And then Mike Perry, that just recently, I would say like maybe a month ago, goes, put that footage out, man. Go ahead. Where's it at? Put it out. Let me see it.
That's funny. I mean, that would be cool to see. But also, I feel like people will go too much into it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. It's sparring, guys. It's sparring.
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you what, the sparring that I was talking about with Mike Perry, I'm not going to release that footage. I'm not going to release the footage of me rolling around on the ground without a liver.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah. No. So, actually, it might be funny. But, but that being said, guys, great show today. John, I appreciate you. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up and then get into, our next show coming up later this week?
Biggest thing I can say, guys, is anybody who enjoys boxing, one, definitely check out our show. But two, start looking at the Ring Magazine schedule. There's a lot of good stuff coming up, man, for the rest of the year. There's just a lot of good fights coming up. I was really excited when I looked at the schedule and seeing different things come up. And I will be checking out my little prospect guy that I like a lot, Ben Whitaker, on Saturday. So if it's free on Peacock, guys, I just got excited. So other than that, Ray, love it. This is awesome. But definitely hit the like, subscribe, all the good stuff on YouTube, Fight Bananas Official, everything, follow everything. And Dave, thank you for the 100% confirmation, Mr. President.
Yeah, shout out to Dave. Also, for those who didn't see the Fight Bananas show earlier today, we had a almost Boxing Bananas edition to the Fight Bananas show. We had Devin Cushing, who's fighting on the July 6th card with Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz. He's a 13-0 boxer, pure boxer, has a tough fight again ahead of him. On the undercard, we had an interview with him, me, myself, and Dave Van Auken. Definitely go check that out.
He's a cool kid, man. He's a cool kid.
I like most definitely. Yeah, he definitely is. So definitely check that out.
And to quote Devin, you better pay attention because he's going to steal the show. Know that. If you don't know his name now, you're going to know it after this fight.
Well, there's definitely an opportunity for him. You know what I mean? It's a big opportunity for him. But so check that out, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like all that good stuff. Check us out later this week. Until then,